Welcome to Titan HST's Business Continuity Today, hosted by Todd DeVoe, where planning meets reality.
Good morning, good afternoon, depending on where you're at. Hi, I'm Todd DeVoe, the host of Business Continuity Today. And man, that's easy for me to say. And, I have been involved in emergency management and response, for a long time now, since 1989. And I started my road into emergency management, business continuity around 1999 when I started doing medical logistics for some of the large fires here in California. And I haven't turned back since. And I love to learn, and I love sharing what I've learned. It's a passion for me, and that is why I am in higher education now and teaching. And today, we're going to be talking about gamification of emergency management training. The theory of gamification is kind of interesting, and we actually use it every day. If you think about when we go online, right, whether it's going to be social media or shopping online, things like this, they've gamified that, which means not like you're playing a video game necessarily, right, but things like badges and discounts and you get a discount code and you put it in and things like that. And if you use your Audible or any kind of online reading devices as well, they give you little badges for finishing your book, right? And that's the gamification that I'm talking about when it comes to your everyday interactions today. So that being said, we have seen this happen for training as well, right? How do you gamify training? Which means, how do you keep the interest of people? As we look at things, our interests it's like a collective ADHD, if you will, where we are looking to get things done quickly and move on to the next. And how do we keep people's attentions? And the idea of gamifying it has been played with for a little while, right? And so, going out and looking at community events, and let's start there. As emergency managers and even business continuity, one of the things we have to do is reach out to our stakeholders. And in some cases, it's the community or maybe even organizational events where you have to train people or teach people about the organization that you're inside, right? So say the department, right, that you're working for, business continuity, talking to everybody else in your organization, say if you work for a large company or say a hospital or something like that. And so what's the way to get them to come in is you see these community booths that are set up and people have little games to play to draw people in. Well, you don't have to necessarily go and do this on a in-person basis. You can do this virtually as well. And so coming up with certain ideas like that. Now, I want to share a couple that we've done in the past. And so Mary Jo Flynn out of Sacramento County and we worked together on a CERT program a while ago. And we were in a location that was kind of restricted in size. And so we came up with the idea of doing a QR code search, right? So if you're doing like search and rescue in a training, you have to do room searches and whatnot and look for victims, right? So instead of having a bunch of victims laying around, what we did is we created little QR codes. You'd get there and you'd QR code them in. You'd have things that you'd have to do specifically associated with that particular room, choices that you'd go through. And if you made the wrong choice, we utilized a clip from YouTube saying, you have chosen wrong, or you've chosen wisely, depending on if you got it right or wrong. And so that was a lot of fun, right? And we had a lot of great positive feedback on that. And you're still learning, but it's learning in a sense of games, right? We've seen this as well throughout schools are doing more of this as well. You can go online and take these brain trainers or brain teasers, if you will, and these boost the activity of mental cognition that you have. And so now you're seeing some of those type of games being put into the learning environment again, because what it does is it keeps you engaged and you're learning again. So in adult education, there's 3 principles of learning, right? And basically it's either you're going to learn by basically reading, by doing, and then also then going back and teaching back. And that's what gamification allows you to do. It allows you to read or get a lecture, right? It allows you to do, right, the gamification part of it. And then it also gives you the ability to teach back, right? And so I think that's really important for us to do this for our staff and for during training purposes. So games in the workplace, there's all these different types of games that you can come up with in the workplace to be able to get people to learn at the same time. And you see this, all different activities for what you need to get done. And we'll have resources also that you can click on so you can find these types of games that you have. And so over the last 10 years, there's large companies have used games to inspire to adopt healthier habits, right? You have the Biggest Loser competitions that they have throughout programs for health and wellness programs. And again, you gamify that and you give a prize at the end. Those makes that motivation, right? So there's things like bike for commuting. So you get prizes for biking, for miles, for walking. I mean, even your Fitbit, right? Or in this case, my iWatch, there's gamification on here on how to make things happen. It tells you stand up, and it gives you a little scoreboard that's going on my watch that tells you how to be healthier. And so those things they work, right? Because people want to participate. And that's what it's all about. It's about gaining participation. Also in training, it doesn't have to be all boring and hard and whatnot, right? And what I mean by this is I created a program it's called Ready Home, right? And it's a board game basically where I created these layouts on grid paper about the size of a table. And you would have moving pieces that you'd walk through your home. As you get into the rooms, there was tasks that you had to complete inside that room. We also added the ability to buy equipment if you have money, because you could earn money, not real money, obviously play money. You could trade equipment back and forth between other households in your neighborhood, or just to add a little fun to it, we also had the ability to steal. And you had to do a dice game to be able to steal from each other. And so again, add that gamification. And what we did is the group that won their table, whoever won, would receive disaster kits. And so at the end of the day, they walked away with a prize, and people really wanted to do it. So we'd have really great competition, and realistically at the end, everybody sort of won something. So everybody walked away happy, and it was a fun time, and people learned how to really prepare their home and ready home. So preparedness activities within your organization do not have to be boring, right? Who wants to sit through another ICS course, right, where you're just up there droning on about, boxes and who fits in the box, right? You make it fun, and you make it interactive, and you make it interesting, and people will walk away from this. Because, individual preparedness is the most difficult task for any emergency manager, business continuity manager to get through, right? Because at the end of the day, we need our people in our organization to be prepared at home. And for them to be prepared at home makes them be a better employee during a crisis, because they know that their family is taken care of. Yes, they're going to be worried about them, but if we know that they're taken care of at home, they're going to be able to stay in task during a disaster or a crisis. People must voluntarily change their habit on their own, right? And this is where the social gaming can make a difference. So, simply building a leaderboard and putting names, on the leaderboard, sometimes that works, right? Sometimes also having, what goes into the kit, can you bring it in and test it out and see who has the best stuff? Sometimes that adds a little competition, and that works. But whatever works for your organization is what you're going to really have to stretch and find out. FEMA has a website that is a course for incident command system to livestock, right? And so even FEMA is getting involved in the gamification of learning as well. And now these things aren't really difficult to implement. Now you have to get buy-in, obviously, from the leadership of your organization to start, doing training like this, because it might sound a little weird and a little odd, especially for, some people who aren't used to the concept of gamification inside the workplace. But once you explain to them and have a great plan laid out, I think that they're going to get behind this for you and really help you out. Now, here's the critical aspect of gamification. Right? It's not all fun. You have to have a training element, and you have to have your goals and objectives written out of what you want to have completed through this thing. And you also need to have learning objectives laid out. So if you've never created a course, right, gamifying it's a little bit tough. But there's a lot of resources out there as well. So when you do, you want to set your objectives just like you would any other kind of training. Your learning objectives are set out, and your outcome, your learning outcome should be set, and you add that in throughout the process of the gamification of that training. Going back to Ready Home, each step that I created in this thing had those learning objectives inside there and had those learning outcomes. And at the end, I had people fill out a survey to see if they learned anything, and it was positive at the end that people did pick up additional information regarding how to prepare their home and their community. And we utilized it through our CERT programs. We worked with a couple of larger organizations. Kelly Blue Book, for instance, was one that came and that we trained their entire staff on this using this the process. And so again, it's based on science. It's based on education principles. It's not just going out there and throwing out a Monopoly game to learn finance, right? You actually have processes behind it. Also, you should add, when you're doing your gamification, it's also important to add those prizes, if you will, associated with it. Now, it could be various different things, whether it's gift cards or if it's physical items and things like this, because at the end, people walk away, and adding that competition aspect to it and having the prize at the end of the game is critical to people, making it fun for them again. So there are various different organizations that you can find, games that are created for you already, or you can sit down and create your own. It's not hard, right? It does take some time, so it's not in the box, but it's easy to do and it's fun to implement. I highly recommend. Gamification isn't the solution in every case, but it can be in many cases. And really take a look at the culture of your organization and seeing how that you can make it work for you. So thank you for being with us today. And visit Titan HST for all your communication needs. And remember, follow us on your favorite podcast player, on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and join us next week. And until then, stay safe and stay hydrated.